I mean, y'all are fine if you want to sit right there. Yeah, we'll be right here, but that's fine. Alrighty. Sure, I'll take it.
I mean, y'all are fine.
I mean, we'll set it in between us like normal. Yeah, we'll be right here, but that's fine. Alrighty. Sure, that's fine. Sure, I'll take it.
I mean, y'all are fine.
I mean, we'll set it in between us like normal. Yeah, we'll be right here, but that's fine. Alrighty. Sure, that's fine. All right. Sure, I'll take it. I mean, y'all are what do you mean?
I mean, we'll set it in between us like normal. Yeah, we'll be right here, but that's fine.
No, the battery's... Oh, you know what?
Sure, that's fine.
Yeah, I think it just died.
Sure, I'll take it. I mean,
what do you mean? Yeah, I'll go ahead and start class. Check.
Yeah, we'll be right here, but that's fine.
Right behind Rob's desk, there's two batteries next to his life savings.
You know what? Sure.
Just make sure nobody here knows that. And there should be two AA batteries right next to Rob's life savings.
Check.
So anyway, we'll go ahead and get started while Matt's going to find the battery for his mic set, because that is how prepared we are here at the Lord's Congregation at Calhoun.
And there should be two AA batteries.
Last week we talked about Elisha. The week before that we talked about Elijah. But as we move forward, we left off with Elisha dying, and we really still see the split kingdom. We see the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. And Matt's eventually going to get to that with the portrait of God's study. But we notice that the northern kingdom really is a revolving door of a bad king. There's a plot to kill the king. The king dies. There's a new king who, guess what? It's just like the last one. He's pretty bad. And so we see really a collapse of the nation from within, as we see more short reigns of kings and a growing power of Assyria to the north. And so as we look at that, we also notice that Judah also has a line of kings, and they start out relatively good, but they begin to slowly drift further away from God later in their life. Were you able to find it? Okay, good. Yeah, the green light means we're good. So, as we're getting into that, Matt, I mean, really, as Hezekiah comes onto the scene, in his youth, he sees the Assyrians take away the northern 10 tribes, and he sees probably of kings. As we're getting into that, I don't know how much of a remnant would have been left over, but he sees them left over in the northern kingdom. And so this would have been something very sudden that they would have seen. I think it was, according to Sennacherib's prison, it was 46 Israelite cities that were taken by Sennacherib's army. So Hezekiah would have known that there was a very large enemy presence to be aware of. And so he was 25 when he ends up becoming a king. But I wanted to open up to you. One, I was actually, I don't know why I've been thinking about this, but do you know what faith is and what it does?
Well, faith works, I can tell you that.
Really?
Yeah, also, who wants to follow a puppet show? I don't. Here we are.
But also, there's a puppet show after us, too.
Okay.
So if it gets too bad, don't worry. There's relief coming.
I can tell you that.
But yeah, I mean, I'll let you know a lot more about really the first taking away of the 10 northern tribes and then Judah's remnant before they end up being eventually taken away by the Babylonians. Is there anything you want to add to that to bring maybe clarity or brevity to
yeah, and just some context. So we've been spending the past, I guess like 3 months walking through the Old Testament. And so Genesis 12, God makes those 3 promises to Abraham, beat to death, because we want you to know that. But the second one, the land promise, is something they've been building up to, and then when they get it, we're just there where they've gotten it on Sunday mornings. But they like really find their identity there, and they really tie themselves to the land. So by the time that Hezekiah is on the scene, they are in different parts of something they've been building up to, and when they get it, okay, so like when Sunday mornings, but the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom, the northern kingdom is taken off first by the Assyrians, and then eventually the southern kingdom is going to be taken away by the Babylonians. And that's bad enough, but remember, this is people who were given this promise. They feel entitled to it. It's really their fault that they've lost it. So there's a lot of different battling feelings that they're going on: hopelessness, despair, regret, repentance, and that's all kind of blended in together. So when Hezekiah comes on the scene, it's a very tumultuous time. It's not a time of peace. The days of Joshua are long gone. This is chaos, and he inherits. And are you going to talk about his dad? It's not all kind of blended in
I mean,
together.
Ahaz
So when Hezekiah comes on the scene,
really
it's a
just
very
in the sense that he
tumultuous
didn't walk
time.
in the ways
It's
of
not a
his
time of
father.
peace. The
His
days of
father was
Joshua
pretty
are
bad
long
off.
gone.
Almost
This
as bad
is,
as Manasseh, but not
chaos,
quite. Still
and
pretty
he
terrible.
inherits. Yeah, so the northern kings, none of them were any good. You just think of the whole northern tribe as a big thumbs down as far as their kings were concerned. The southern tribe was kind of a mixed bag, and Hezekiah is one of the best ones. Maybe, I guess, the best king.
I mean, he's better than Jehu.
Yeah, better than these bad ones. So even Hezekiah's dad was terrible. So he comes onto the scene, Hezekiah does at 25, and his dad is just sown discord and false doctrine and worshiping all these idols. So it's not like he grew up in the church. He grew up in the opposite. So we're just so thankful when we see people do what's right no matter what their parents have done. And Hezekiah's that guy. Like, he's never probably seen God worship correctly. He's never enjoyed the peaceful promises of God. It's just been chaos. So what he does as we go through this is even more powerful. It's not like he started out with it.
Yeah, I mean, if you turn to
he's never
2
probably
Kings,
seen God
chapter
worship
18,
correctly.
and even look following, Hezekiah is 25 years old. Whenever he comes on the scene, he immediately starts making reforms. So things that he'd never even seen. He gets rid of the different, basically cleanses the temple. He gets rid of all of the different false god narratives that they were worshiping. He destroys all of that. They throw it in the Kidron Valley, removes the idols, the pagan altars, and he ends up humbling himself in a way that none of the kings had done before him, and none of the kings of Judah had done after him. And it was really everything that he was doing in his youth was after he was pursuing God.
Yeah, and it's neat too. He's a restorer. He's fixing things back the way they should be. How did they get that way? His dad. So he is literally undoing what his dad had done. His dad boarded up the temple, and it was a place where you would put they stored garbage there. And he kicked out the priests, and he worshipped all these idols, and he even sacrificed. So this is Hezekiah's dad. Sacrificed some of his own children. So like, Hezekiah's kind of lucky that he's there, that he wasn't part of that. So it's just funny to me as you read about him.
Kicked out the priests, worshipped all these idols, and he even sacrificed. So this is Hezekiah's
And what's funny is once he did these things, the people followed. He reinstituted the Levites, he reinstituted the priesthood, which is something they didn't have before, really. And then even with that, the people came in with resounding support. They were tithing more, they were giving more, and they really supported everything that Hezekiah stood for, because he was saying, we need to return to God. And he did something for the first time since the period of the judges, is he reinstituted the Passover. That is something that had not been officially done in, just really, if you would say, from Dan to Beersheba, all of Israel. It had not been done since the period of the judges, where they instituted a national Passover, where he invited everybody. And now, he invited some tribes, and they mocked him and they laughed at him. But then he invited some others, and the remnants of men from Asher and from some of these other tribes ended up coming, and they ended up partaking in that. And they ended up having, it went so well after the first 7 days, they did it for another 7. So they had 14 days of celebrating the Passover.
Trying to catch up from this time.
Yeah, I guess so. After a couple of hundred years of not doing it. And so there's really a lot that Hezekiah did that was really incredible in the beginning of his reign. And so you would think, like, well, Hezekiah's doing all these great things. He's restoring the people. He's restoring their hearts. He's turning the priesthood back to God. He got rid of everything in the temple. He, took rid of all the false high places in like Bethel and in Dan. He removed all of those. Wouldn't God bless him with that? Wouldn't God just make his life and his reign that easy and just be incredible to him as a king? Wouldn't God reward him for doing all of that?
And it just shows that spiritual obedience doesn't always lend itself to physical blessings. It does, and they're very physical people, but Hezekiah is going to end up having some problems even if he followed God.
In the midst of Hezekiah's faithfulness, we see the Syrian army pose an extremely dangerous and imminent threat to him and all of his kingdom. Sennacherib's army was, at the time, the largest standing force in the world. They were an extremely disciplined and precise military. The military was so big with them that they were able to have multi-theater campaigns with different supply chains and different militias going into particular areas. So think of America with the Eastern Front and in the Western Front in World War II, they were able to do 2, if not 4 of those all at once at the same time. This was a massive, massive military. In 701 BC, there's they call it the Syro-Palestine campaign of the Assyrian inscription, which is really the Sennacherib prison, or I think it's the Taylor's prison.
So just some information about that. So we believe everything in the Bible is true because the Bible says it. And we don't necessarily need outside sources because the Bible confirms itself. But one of the reasons we believe that is the outside sources support that. And so Sennacherib, this military general, he would go through and just wipe people out. And then he would, the victors write the stories in the history book. So he had these little prisms about how great he was at conquering people. And one of the prisms has a reference to Hezekiah. And so it talks about this story in very similar language to what the Bible does in a completely, we would say, secular source. So it is pretty neat. And you can actually go and see Sennacherib's prism. I think it's in one of the museums. British Museum. Yeah, British Museum in London, right? Yeah, and you can read Hezekiah on there and things like that. And it says he shut him up like a bird in a cage, and then it says Hezekiah paid him a tribute. And so this is stuff we can see in the Bible too. So we don't necessarily need that because of the way we believe inspiration works, and we believe the Bible. So when it talks about science, though it's not a science book, it's accurate. When it talks about history, though that's not its main point, it's accurate. And you can go check this thing out in the museum. We don't necessarily need that because of the way we believe inspiration works.
Yeah, it's actually what Matt had said is it's with Sennacherib's prison, column 3, line 20. But even as
y'all will all remember that.
Yeah, column 3, line 20. Just whenever you learn cuneiform, just go back and you can check that out whenever you get that plane ticket to London. But anyway, he essentially talks about the different tactics in the 46 cities that he had taken, one of which being Lachish, which Sennacherib, whenever he got back home, he had built the Lachish relief, which is funny. Victoria and I believe Victoria was with me, but we actually got to go to Lachish within Israel, and then I also got to go to the museum in London where they have the relief that he had built, and I said, that's crazy, that looks just like Lachish. I mean, that is the exact layout of how it was. But Sennacherib came with this great army, and he laid siege to Lachish, so much to the point, and this is right beforehand, he had isolated Israel from all of their other strong command outposts to be able to have any support. But they also spent about a month building a siege ramp, which is approximately 20,000 rocks that they would have actually gotten together and used to build this siege ramp. This is before the Romans. So the Romans likely got their ideas for this from the Assyrians. But archaeologists also found roughly 1,500 bodies during the time of that war, after the fact, whenever they uncovered Lachish. And even still, you can see the siege ramp today. And so Sennacherib's military was huge. He basically went through all of Galilee, all of Israel, went around Jerusalem in the lower hill country, and then came back up into the mountains to finally attack them. So for Hezekiah, he's already looked off into the distance, and he's seen the different fires that have been lit on top of the mountains. He's already known that Sennacherib had gone through, even if nobody has came and told him. The Israelites had structured on the top of different mountains these fires that they could light. Has anybody ever seen Mulan? Maybe with their kid or their grandkid, but or when you were a kid. But in that, he says he lit the fire, and he says, now all of China knows you're here. Well, he knew about this for a while. In fact, he decided to start building some things in preparation for that. What were some of the things that Hezekiah did, Matt, to get ready for Sennacherib's invasion of Jerusalem?
Well, I was going to back up just one quick second and say, so Sennacherib had already conquered the northern kingdom. So it's not like this is some unknown force. They're right at the gate. Now, the southern kingdom's about to fall too. Of course, God is still with the southern kingdom, so that's going to delay that. You can mention the conquer the northern kingdom if you don't mind.
Sure, yeah. If you guys will go to 2 Chronicles chapter 32, verses 1 through 8. 2 Chronicles 32,
God is still with the southern kingdom, so that's going to delay that.
Now, Matt, is this the same Chronicles that whenever it says, like, it talks about 2 Kings, it goes, if you want to learn more about this person, just refer to the Chronicles of the Kings. Is it talking about the Chronicles that we have in the Bible, or is it something else?
I believe it's something else. There's probably some overlap, but typically guys would write the things about saying, hey, if you want to know more about it, go read the Military Conquest. So
is that talking about the Chronicles that we have in the Bible, or is it something else? No, I mean, that's essentially it.
Something else. There's probably some overlap, but typically guys would write the
2 Chronicles 32.
saying,
And if you want to know more about it, go read the military conquest.
User error here. After these things and these acts of faithfulness, Sennacherib, king of Assyria, came and invaded Judah and encamped against the fortified cities, thinking to win them for himself. And when Hezekiah saw that Sennacherib had come and intended to fight against Jerusalem, he planned with his officers and his mighty men to stop the water of the springs that were outside the city, and they helped him. A great many people were gathered, and they stopped all the springs and the brook that flowed through the land, saying, "Why should the king of Assyria come and find much water?" He set to work resolutely and built up the wall that was broken down and raised towers upon it. And outside it he built another wall, and he strengthened the Milo in the city of David. He also made weapons and shields in abundance. So funny enough, the Milo in the city of David was this shaft that went directly up, and the man who discovered it is Warren, so he named it Warren's Shaft. And basically what they did is right next to this, they had blocked off that area, because if you think about it, that Milo was the same way that David's mighty men were able to crawl up to get inside the walls of Jerusalem when it was still a Jebusite city. And so they made sure they fortified that area to where the Assyrians couldn't do the same thing, so they shored up the way that they took the city by learning from their own past victories. But they also redirected the entire spring from the pool of Siloam all the way up to really where the spring begins. And so there was actually a Canaanite passage that was already there, that they had already used to go and collect spring water. But what Hezekiah did is he goes, we're going to connect these two. And so I don't remember how many, it had to be about a mile and a half that they drilled rock underneath the ground. And they had one guy start at one place and one guy start at the other. I don't know how they did it, but I got to walk through Hezekiah's tunnel. If you go slow, it's about 30 minutes, but at a faster pace, it's about 15. And you can still see the marks where they had scratched out part of the wall, or where they had set down a lamp. And it's about up to your knees in the water, sometimes about halfway up your calves.
Yeah, and you can do if you go to Israel, you can do the dry tunnel, which is what we did when we went. Or you can do we didn't have time, I guess, but the wet one, the water.
And it takes you right down to the pool of Siloam, where Jesus had
you can do if you go to Israel, you can do the dry tunnel.
And so really within that, you notice when you're going through it about halfway, you have an immediate you hit a wall, and then you make a turn, and then you go again. And that was where the two guys found each other. They were able to find each other, then they connected the tunnels, and the water was able to flow. And so they did that in a pretty speedy manner.
So Sennacherib's like, we're going to cut off the water to the city. Hezekiah's like, no, it's okay, we'll just move the water inside the city. What else you got? That's kind of what he did.
Exactly. And then he just doesn't does that, but in verse 7, he tells the people to be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or dismayed before the king of Assyria and all the horde that is with him, for there are more with us than with him. What does that sound like? It sounds kind of like Elisha praying to God to open up his servant's eyes so that he can see all of God's angel army on the mountaintop.
And he tells Moses, be strong and courageous, tells Joshua, be strong and courageous, tells Elijah, there's more of us than there are of them, tells Hezekiah, there's more of us than there are of them. There's always more with God than with anybody else.
Right. And with him is an arm of flesh, but with us is the Lord our God to help us and to fight our battles. And the people took confidence from the words of Hezekiah, king of Judah. And what's interesting here, they must have taken great confidence in him, because right after this, we see where the Rav Shaka comes through, and he starts blaspheming God, and he starts telling them, and the people can hear it, and he's saying in Hebrew, God told me that he has sent me to be his instrument of destruction to destroy you, which is kind of scary, because they would have understood, well, that just happened to the 10 northern tribes. Maybe God did speak to them. And so if there was any doubt, if there was any lack of faith in their hearts, I guarantee you that was going to start eating away. And even the men of King Hezekiah said, please speak to us in Aramaic. Don't speak to us in Hebrew, so that people won't understand. And he says, no, I'm going to tell everybody. And yet the king told them not to speak a word. And so none of the men on the wall spoke a word. It takes a lot of discipline for a soldier to just not speak out of turn. I would know. It takes a lot of discipline for them to keep their mouth shut and to not to go forward and just say whatever they wanted to. So this is a pretty huge thing. And we see how Hezekiah responds. So 2 Chronicles chapter 32, verses 20 through 23. Then Hezekiah the king and Isaiah the prophet, the son of Amos, prayed because of this and cried to heaven. And the Lord sent an angel who cut off all the mighty warriors and commanders and officers in the camp of the king of Assyria. So he returned with shame of his face to his own land. And when he came into the house of his God, some of his own sons struck him down there with the sword. And I'll go ahead and just stop at that point. But if you also look at comparative passages, I think it's 2 Kings 21 through 6. Is that right, Matt? Do you have that? Yeah, so we also see where God delivered the Israelites from great defeat by the Assyrians. And so the angel of the Lord in 2 Kings, it says, struck down 185,000 Assyrian soldiers that night in the camp. Yeah, so we also see where God delivered the Israelites. So the southern kingdom was not going to face the same sentence as the northern kingdom. In 2 Kings, it says, struck down 185,000. Hezekiah did a great job to prevent tragedy, but he also ended up starting the next tragedy all on his own. Matt, do you want to speak a little bit on that one? So we have in 2 Kings 21 through 6, he almost dies, the Lord extends his life, and then really after that, he makes a mistake.
Yeah, we'll talk more about this on Sunday morning, but I have a hard time remembering different things, especially cities I've never been to, names I don't know how to pronounce. So who took the northern kingdom? It's the Assyrians, that starts with A. Who takes the southern kingdom? It's the Babylonians, that starts with B. I'm not super smart, but I can remember that A is on top and B is on bottom. And so I usually will just draw this out like a little line and an X and an A, and then I'll draw a longer line with an X and a B. Because the southern kingdom lasts a while, yeah, but until the Assyrians. The northern kingdom lasts longer, well, yeah, until the Babylonians. And so I usually will just draw this out like a little line.
The northern kingdom.
Northern Assyrians. See, I said I'm not that smart. Thank you. Yeah, what he said. Let's back up.
Northern kingdom lasts long.
So, northern kingdom, captivity with the Assyrians. Southern kingdom, captivity with the Babylonians. Okay, so the Babylonians send this envoy to Hezekiah, and so he welcomes them in, shows all the stuff that he's got. So, northern kingdom, captivity with the Assyrians.
Yeah, southern kingdom, you got a lot of cool toys. Oh, check out everything I've got.
Look at all this gold, you know. And so it sounds harmless, I guess, but it's a pretty prideful thing to say, hey, look at all of the things that I have. And remember, where did he get them? We got them from God, but it seems like at least he left God out of some of that. So instead of honoring God, he shows them all his treasures.
It sounds harmless, I guess, but it's a pretty prideful thing to say, hey, look at all the things that I have.
Isaiah. Isaiah comes against him and he rebukes him in 2 Kings 20, 16 through 21.
Instead of honoring God, he shows
essentially, he explains to him. I'll just go ahead and read it real quick. We've got to end this soon. We've got a puppet show to watch. So 2 Kings 20, 16 through 21. Then Isaiah said to Hezekiah, hear the word of the Lord. Behold, the days are coming when all that is in your house, and that which your fathers have stored up till this day, shall be carried to Babylon. Nothing shall be left, says the Lord. And some of your own sons who will come from you, whom you will father, shall be taken away, and they shall be eunuchs in the palace of the king of Babylon. Then Hezekiah said to Isaiah, the word of the Lord that you have spoken is good. Wow, Hezekiah has so much faith. Oh, but then God tells us, for he thought, why not? If there will be peace and security in my days.
Yeah, so basically God says, hey, everything you just showed the Babylonians, they're going to come and take. And by the way, you're going to be punished. Here's what's going to happen to your sons. And Hezekiah says, oh, that's too bad. Well, at least it's not going to happen to me. Right? So, I mean, a guy that was pretty faithful early on. And so I think you kind of see from that, you can be real faithful during conflict and all these things, and you can kind of drift.
And Hezekiah says, oh, that's too bad.
So how often have you seen somebody come back during a tragedy, but then when things are actually really good, is maybe
God that's pretty faithful.
That's some of what Hezekiah said.
So I think you kind of
and this also, I'll close with this, it exposed Hezekiah's heart to us. Even when we go into Scripture, we don't always see where someone's heart was, but he exposed a creeping self-interest that forgot the next generation. He cared just about himself. How should that caution us as to what we leave the next generation? The Psalms say that a wise man considers the inheritance of the children of his children. He cared just about himself. How do we think about that spiritually? We have a bunch of kids that are about to come in here that we invest so much in to last leaders. I mean, the Myers, the Vicks, the Lyles, I can't mention everybody, all of you, every single one of you that spend the time investing in these children. They're the generation that's coming up after us. So what are we going to leave them as a spiritual inheritance? All of you, every single one of you. We have to think about that. It's harder to measure that. They're the generation. We can't go to our checkbook and look at what the spiritual inheritance we're leaving. So we need to make sure that if we start strong like Hezekiah, that we make sure that we end strong. With that, we'll go ahead and close out. Why not? We're a bunch of praying people. Matt, will you lead a quick prayer?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's pray. Dear God, we're
make sure that we end strong.
Of your kings, both in the northern kingdom, so we know how not to act, and in the southern kingdom, how to act and how to act. We're thankful for the good examples of Hezekiah, how he was faithful in times of conflict, but help us to learn from his mistakes too, and to be better in the northern kingdom, so we know how not to act, and in the southern kingdom, how to act and how to act after us, and to cling to you not only during times of conflict, but also in conflict. Help us to restore what needs to be restored, not just to try to fix broken things necessarily, but to, if we have to do what he did and burn them down and restart them in our lives, that we'll be willing to do that. Even if our father didn't do it, even if it's not popular in the time, help us to do what it is to restore what needs to be restored, not just to try to fix broken things necessarily, but to, if we have to do what he did and burn them down and restart them in our lives, that we'll be willing to do that.